Basic economics. Quote, the imperfections of the marketplace have led many to see government interventions as necessary and beneficial. Franklin Roosevelt would have said so,
yes.
And many since. Yet the imperfections of the market must be weighed against the imperfections of the government. Explain that.
You know, it always amazes me that people think that if you say the market is imperfect, that means the government must step in. And I think, you know, we're so much more rational in sports. I mean, when Babe Ruth went up there and struck out, they didn't say, we got to send in a pinch hitter for him next time at bat. Because who knows, the pinch hitter might strike out, and he's not as likely to hit a home run as Babe Ruth is.
Okay. Let's apply this notion of weighing market failure against government failure in a couple of specific instances. Dodd-Frank, signed into law by President Obama on July 21st, 2010, quote, I'm quoting now the name of this act, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act to promote the financial stability of the United States by improving accountability and transparency in the financial system and to end too big to fail, close quote. You're in favor of that, of course.
Oh, I'm in favor of many things that are said in preambles. It's just when they get into the actual text of the law that the problems begin.
And Dodd-Frank is an example of what?
Well, for one thing, it's an example of why the government doesn't have to learn from its mistakes. If you would have asked me who were the two men who did the most to bring on the housing collapse from which this economy has still not recovered, I would have said Chris Dodd and Barney Frank.
Chris Dodd, senator of Connecticut at the time, Barney Frank, longtime Massachusetts congressman.
That's right.
Both retired, incidentally, now.
Good. But they left this behind as their legacy.
And they did so how? That is,
by having the government underwrite risky loans, and by, in fact, the power of the government being used to force private lenders to underwrite risky loans. Because if they didn't, they'd be set upon by HUD, by the Federal Reserve, and Janet Reno threatened to prosecute those who weren't making enough loans to low-income people.
So Senator Dodd and Congressman Frank enacted legislation and leaned on regulators to use the coercive power of the federal government to force the financial industry to take on more risk than it wanted to.
Yes.
And then they enacted this legislation to penalize the financial industry for taking on too much risk.
Yes.
And none of this doesn't strike you as mad, or you've gotten used to the madness in the federal government.
Well, in fact, just the other day I saw where the federal government is now going to be supporting house loans with 3% down. Which
here we go again.
And you ask, well, why don't they learn? And the answer, they do learn. They learn that they gain the political benefits of doing things like that. And when it blows up in their face, they can blame someone else, and then they can come back later and make the same mistakes with probably the same benefits.
All right. Obamacare, signed into law by President Obama on March 23rd, 2010, the formal name, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. And this, at last, represents an example of judicious government intervention in a market where it was pricing ordinary people out of health. Why are you laughing, Tom?
It really is amazing how these con games are played. Actually, the premiums have gone up, but it would have been a disaster if they hadn't gone up, because the deductibles have gone up. I mean, at a sufficiently high deductible, I would be willing to set up an insurance company and insure you for $10 a month for everything imaginable. And I say, we'll have $1 million deductible.
Got it.
And after you've had all your illnesses that could happen to you, and you're maybe $800,000 or $900,000 out, I still wouldn't have laid out a penny.
Okay, so. By the way, now the debate, Republicans have won both houses of Congress. The new Congress will be sworn in January, and the debate now is, should Obamacare be fixed or repealed outright?
Repealed outright, that would fix it.